Hey guys, it's Roscoe, and on the Space Couch today I want to talk to you about the recent pad abort test that Spacex completed. So the point of this was to see if the Dragon capsule could escape from a launch situation where there was something wrong with the rocket, boost itself out and land somewhere safely. And this is to see if the Super Draco thrusters, which are all 3D printed, are capable of boosting it away from the launch platform. So, it wasn't an actual launch of a rocket, and there was no first or second stage rocket there. It was essentially, it was the trunk, you know, where they store a lot of the cargo, and the capsule, and they were sitting on this kind of truss structure, which can then launch away from once the test completes. So, that's essentially what happened. The thrusters fire went into the air. The footage was awesome. I'll try and post a few pictures at the end. It reached its apogee, separated from the trunk, and then deployed its parachutes to then come down for a landing just offshore. This test appears to have been mostly successful from what I've read, and also statements by NASA and SpaceX. I mean, the whole test lasted about 90 seconds from start to finish. Less than 2 minutes, certainly. And the capsule went from 0 to 100 in 1.2 seconds. That's even faster than Tesla's. It reached a speed of 345 miles an hour, and it landed about 1.2 kilometers away from the launch site and hit about 6 Gs during that acceleration. There was a crash test dummy inside, taking the various load measurements of gravity and see how that would impact a human. I'm sure there's lots of very interesting data will come from that. Now, the next stage to certify these Dragon capsules for human-rated spaceflight is actually going to be an in-flight abort test, and that should be very interesting. They are going to launch an actual Falcon 9. I'm not sure if it's just the first stage. I don't know if there wouldn't be a need for a second stage, I suppose. So they're going to launch the Falcon 9 with a Dragon on the top. And then, just to prove that this works under all circumstances, just as that rocket reaches what is known as maximum dynamic pressure, max Q, I believe is the term in the industry, you know, I think that's just after it hits the speed of sound, where this is the point where if anything was going to go wrong, it would go wrong. They're then going to launch the Dragon capsule away from the rocket at that stage. That should be very interesting, seeing an actual in-flight abort test. I don't think anyone has ever done one of those before. And I assume they're going to be trying to reuse that first stage. I know there is another of the drone ships on the west coast. It's launching from Vandenberg in California. I believe that one is called, Of Course I Still Love You. The one at Florida is called Just Read the Instructions. Should be very interesting to see. And like I said, I hope they do manage to recover that first stage. Now, obviously, these are steps on the way to certifying the Dragon for human spaceflight. That should be by the end of 2017. Remember, this is when the space taxi service is supposed to be coming into effect. And obviously, it won't just be the International Space Station needing people to go there. It should be these other Bigelow-style habitats or whatever else comes along. Also, by the way, just about these in-flight abort tests, apparently, depending on when there was a malfunction and the capsule had to escape, you could escape all the way into orbit on one of these Dragons, depending on which part of your cycle you have to escape from. So that's very interesting. You wouldn't have to then just come back down to Earth for a water. It'd be a complete waste of whatever mission that was. But if you could escape to orbit, well, that would be good. It might be very useful in the zombie apocalypse, for instance. Yeah. However, eventually, I mean, when you see the power that Super Draco thrusters have got, I believe it's £16,000 each, and there's 8 of them built into the spaceship. The Draco thrusters on the original Dragon cargo capsule, I think they've got about £100 of thrust each. The advantages, of course, to having an in-built escape system is you can also use it as your landing system, and obviously we know That's what they're planning to do, land their Dragons on land. But it also means you don't need that launch escape tower that pretty much every other manned capsule has had in the past, you know, and that is only useful for the first few minutes of the flight, because that's like this tower that's built on the very end of the rocket. It's like a needle, and if anything were to go wrong, that would ignite, and it would pull the capsule away from the rocket and then jettison, and then obviously it would land parachute somewhere. It's very wasteful. You know, SpaceX and Elon Musk, they're not into wasteful technologies. So yes, that's why there's no launch escape tower. I think the Orion capsule, when it launched last year, it did have a launch escape tower. Yeah, the problem with that is if you can't jettison your launch escape tower, you can't dock in orbit. This is probably another reason why Elon Musk has decided it's not necessary. In what's perhaps going to be a sign of the times, I believe the Boeing CST-100 doesn't have a launch escape tower either, and it is also building its launch escape landing system, what have you, into the actual spacecraft. So it looks like fully reusable spaceships and rockets are getting a little bit closer, another step further along. You know, like I said, and actually SpaceX, this was one of the milestones in the development program that they've been part of to run the flights up to the ISS with passengers. And I think this milestone, they would earn $30 million. I'm sure they've spent a lot more of that on the test. But the next big milestone, obviously, the in-flight abort test. I believe that is going to be next month in June 2015. Can't wait for that. It should be incredible. I mean, just imagine just seeing that. When you see the pictures just of the actual pad abort test and how awesome that was, seeing it actually boost away from an in-flight rocket, that'll be amazing. That will be like proper science fiction stuff. I'm telling you, it's going to look awesome. And we'll see that repeated probably in films and programs over the years to follow, now that we'll actually know what this looks like. Anyway guys, that was just my thoughts on the SpaceX pad abort test and how important it is for the future of manned spaceflight. Should just be the year after next, by the time Dragon is flying up into orbit. Wouldn't that be awesome? As always guys, please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this content. Leave a comment or a suggestion for an upcoming video, or hit that big like button.